Hi, everybody. This is Josh, and welcome to another episode in this MULAB series. I thought in this video it might be a good idea to try to combine some of the previous concepts into sort of a MULAB jam where we can just kind of explore some of the features of MULAB while trying to create hopefully something that's worth keeping. So I'll try to sort of narrate as best as possible while I create this piece of music. So here we are in a blank project. I just hit new when MULAB opened and created a new project. It puts in a master track and a basic synth rack by default, which is using one of the MUX presets, basic synth. I don't want that, so I'm just going to select it, delete it. I'll go ahead and keep the track up there because I can assign that to anything. I'm going to go to my rack presets that we created in a previous video, grab my 3-layer kick, drag that in, go ahead and double click to rename it, just name it kick to simplify my labeling, and then drag it up to the first track. Now I'm going to go for a 4-measure loop here, double click to create a clip, double click that to enter into the MIDI editor or the piano roll editor. I'll find a good note for this kick. I like that note a bit. And I can hold Command or just double click to create notes. And there we have it. I could go ahead and go out the whole 4 measures, but I want this just to be a steady 4 on the floor kick, so I'm just going to grab right up here in this measure area up here. There's really hardly any way to see that this does anything, but if you just drag and click and drag, you can see now there's like a little loop bar up there. And then those appear. So now what I have is a sequence that has a beginning and an end loop point. So when I come back out here, you can see there's these little fine lines that indicate that this is a looping sequence. There we have it. And I'll just hit enter on that to rename that sequence as well, which is actually very handy, because you can go over here anytime and see your sequences and play them. Pretty cool. All right, so we got our kick. And let's just build a basic track here. I'll go ahead and grab a... actually, I'm going to grab one from my sample pack here, just so you can see this. Another way of adding your own samples. Yeah, quite like that one. I'm going to drag it right in here, drop it. I'm going to select pitch sample. It puts one note in there for me with the mu sampler. Okay, and just going to drag that out. Double click it. I don't want it on the first beat, I want it on the second beat. And there we have it. Take it down just a tiny bit. Shorten it up. And I'm going to do the same thing and just create a loop out of that first measure. Like that. Let's give this a color. Right click, choose color, make it that blue color. My drums. Alright, so we got it. Simple kick and snare, or kick and clap. I want to dirty up this clap a little bit, so let's go to our Move Tools Factory Effects, and I'm going to choose under Distortion the saturation. Let's solo this. Add a little bit more drive to it. And I'm going to turn it down just to compensate. Okay, I like that. All right, now let's get some instruments in here. Another way to do this, I don't know if I showed you this in a previous video or not, but you can click down over here to add a track and then have these options. You can select an instrument track, which is what I'm going to do. From the factory library, under instruments, and I want to start with a bass. I have my microKORG MIDI controller connected. I like this Poly 6 one, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a color. And it creates the track and the rack, changing the filter, frequency, that sort of thing. All right, so I've got a little melody in mind. Let's just play it back. All right, go back to the beginning. I'm going to hit R to start record. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and right-click up here on this little note and change my auto-quantize to 16th notes. There we go. Start recording. I didn't like that very much. Let's go ahead, and I might want a little bit more variation in my bass part, so I'm going to go ahead and go out to 8 bars, grab these, stretch them out because they are looping sequences now. I'm going to go ahead and rename this for simplicity's sake as well. Bass, there we have it. I'm going to add another instrument. I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to go ahead and go into bass again. Quite like this one. I just want to go up a couple octaves. See how that sounds. Put that in, and I can either drag it here or I could just drag it over here and create the track and the rack at the same time. Give this another color. That. Okay, start recording. Got that little bit of a swing on it. Gonna mute the bass just to see how that sounds with the beat. All right, I'm liking that a lot. I want to give this synth a little bit more dirt. Let me just go ahead and command drag the saturation from the clap over there. See how it sounds. Might be a little bit too much. Take the drive down. It's actually quieter in volume, but it's perceivable volume when you distort something goes up, so I like that. Drive it a little bit more. Cool. Got a nice little groove going on. There's a VST plugin that I really like. It sounds really nice on bass and a lot of stuff. And I'll put a link in the description for it. It's free, and it's for Mac or Windows. And I'm going to go here to it. It's TAL-TUBE. It's from Toga Audio Lines. Free VST plugins, and I usually just leave it as at the default settings for bass. I like the little amp effect that it gives this bass. Little boost in volume, a little bit of compression, a little bit of drive. I can probably turn it down just a little bit now. Make sure I listen to it with my kick so that you know that they're not competing too much. Now, I haven't used any EQ on my kick or my bass, or actually any of my tracks yet, which I will be doing. But a lot of what you can do in MULAB, and you can do this in other workstations as well. But I really love the flexibility of all of the sound generation features. For example, the kick drum, I can really tune it to get almost exactly what I want without very much processing at all. You know, sometimes that to get that click, you really have to boost some of the higher frequencies if you're using a sample to get the nice mid-range punch that you want. You know, you have to layer up with maybe another sample kick, and this has all the layers of the kick that I really want. I have the low subs of an 808. I've got the mid-range punch of the 909, and I've got the attack with the clipper, which is really great. I can EQ it further, of course, but I like to do sort of as little processing as I really need to, both to save CPU and also just to stay creative and just keep going and creating sounds. And then save the sort of organizational side of mixing for another time when I really want to clean up this project and make it sound really great before I bounce it out to an audio file. So I use this one more for getting the tone of the bass that I want, and so that's sounding pretty nice to me. All right, let's listen to that with everything else. Now there are some bass frequencies in this synth, so I'm going to go ahead and add a, what do I want to add here? A filter. I want to add a high-pass filter right there. That's too much, so let's take it down until we can hear it just getting rid of some of those lows. Probably around 200, 300 maybe. Maybe more. Okay. I just don't want it to be muddy with the bass, so that gives more room. Let's put this before our saturation, so we can just arrange these in our rack. That saturation plugin actually helps compress the dynamics a little bit. All right, I really like the feeling of this. Let's go ahead and start creating some groups here. Another thing I'm going to do, just to make my life a little easier and give myself a little bit more room on my 13-inch screen here, is right-click on the any rack here, and you can have this option. You'll see auto collapse and expand. I'm going to check that, and then go ahead and minimize all of these. So now what will happen is whenever I select a rack that I want to sort of get into any of the parameters, it just auto expands it for me. And when I click off of it to something else, it collapses that one, expands the other one, which is really nice. What I'm going to do now is create some groups by creating a fresh empty rack. I'm going to call this one drums. And I'm going to move it over here by my master. I like to try to set it up kind of like it would be on an analog console. Next to your master fader, usually have your subgroups. And so that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to route my drums. So like my kick, instead of going to the master track, I'm going to route it to drums. Just by clicking down here where the output is going to. Same with the clap. Instead of master, go to drums. I'm going to create another one for my synths. Sometimes I separate my bass and higher register sounds. Sometimes I don't. It really depends on the track. If I want to process them differently, I send them out to different subgroups. For this one, I'm just going to call it synths. And the idea of this is just basically so that you can quickly get your mixes a little closer to what you want. And route this to synths here, and route this one to synths as well. So any melodic parts basically is what I'm doing here, is I'm routing to my synths so that I can really mix them against the percussion and the drums, as well as be able to process them a little bit different, like put a limiter on it. That's something I quite often do. With my drums, I also like, there's another VST plugin that's free, and it's called Camel Crusher. This just gives the drums a nice grit, and you can see here sort of the settings that I use. Basically just take out all the distortion and turn it off. Take my master all the way up, and the compressor is very gentle, but I have the fat mode on, and it just adds a little bit of oomph to the drums, especially when it's on a bus. Now I can hear that these are still clashing a little bit, so I'm going to high pass this synth part even more. And maybe put a low pass on the bass just to separate them a little bit further. And they have some really nice EQs in here, but I'm just using the filters, low pass filter. And you hear that separates those melodic parts a little better. The nice thing about using those filters as well is I can still get some nice variation changing my synth parameters. Let's play this bass, for example. So there's a lot of expression in doing some of those kind of filter sweeps, which I'm probably going to do and automate later on in the project, as I want to create some dynamics and emotion. But having this low-pass filter sort of ensures that filter frequency doesn't go past my my low-pass cutoff, so it still stays sort of in the frequency range that I want this bass to stay in. Okay, so we see we're clipping over here in the master track, so I'm going to go ahead and take down everything. That's the nice thing about these subgroups as well. drums up just a little bit more. There's so much more that we could do, but this has been long enough, and I hope that gives you some good ideas. Before I go, let me do one more thing, because I do this a lot. I think it really helps bring my tracks to life. Is the master track, and while MULAB is definitely not made for mastering, this is more about, for me anyways, sort of getting the tone and character of my tracks as an overall kind of mix. I've begun to sort of develop a certain texture and character that I like to hear on my tracks, and a lot of them have to do with just the overall EQ compression, not as a mastering process, but as more of an additional sound shaping that just kind of fits over my whole mix. So I'll just show you how you can do that kind of thing. You can do whatever you would like to do. All right, under my VST effects, this is another free VST SonEQ. Great plugin. This works on Mac and PC as well. Really, really nice. I like to use it on my master track because it just has a really, to me, it's a very, very transparent sound, and sort of a polishing of putting it on everything. So what I like to do also is this high pass and low pass, and I can get rid of any any really unaudible sonics that I just don't want, or harsh highs that I don't want. Just a really shallow roll off on both of those allows me to get more volume as well out of my track, because I'm not pushing stuff that your ears aren't going to be able to pick up anyway. And I usually like to take the input down just a teeny tiny bit, because I'm going to compress it after this. I turn the drive on and I turn it up. I like to drive this EQ. It's very nice. I usually go to the 60 and boost that just a little bit. This may not need too much with the kick and bass going. And then I turn about 15K and give it a good boost there. And that's about it. The rest of it, I try to get my instruments EQ'd the way that I want them, and which a lot of this we won't be able to get into in one video. But so this is more of a general EQ. I mean, you can see it's just very mild. A little bit of a low end boost, a little high cut, little low cut. Just getting rid of those extremes. And then I turn the drive on and let it drive the EQ. I also have another plugin that I use usually right after that is the FR Comp, which is by eaReckon, another free plugin. And it's a compressor, very simple compressor. And I take the limiter, turn the limiter off, put the attack to very slow. So I'm letting a lot of transients through, and then I'm just sort of compressing everything after it. And I just listen and see where I need to put it. I usually just like to see the reduction right about there. And then just give it maybe 1 or 2 dB of makeup, maybe a little more, not too much. Let that keep going, and I'll add my final plugin that I put on my master anyways is LoudMax. Yet again, another free EQ, and you can see it's doing nothing right now. There's a couple peaks maybe that it's just like half a dB, 1 dB max. And So you can either just leave this leave the threshold at 0, and then push my compressor just a little bit more if I want to get a little bit more squashed sound, or I can really use the limiter. You get a little bit different sound. So if I take my makeup gain and compress it a little bit more, you'll start seeing the limiter working. And that sounds pretty good to me. I'm not peaking, and I'm not squashing things too hard. I can still hear all my transients. Has a nice punch to everything. I can go ahead and, if you hold Alt or Option, you can turn these off. So listen to it about halfway through with them on, and then I'm just going to go through and click them all off, and you can hear a big volume difference and a real tone difference. So that's what I usually do on the master track inside MULAB. So hopefully this video has helped you with something, and it's been fun making it. I'll see you in the next one.